Okay, we're just at 3 minutes past 8 there, so I think we'll just get started. So I'm delighted to invite you all again tonight and welcome you to our second in our series of Tipperary coaching webinars. Our speaker tonight is Brian Boyle. Brian is no stranger to Tipperary Camogie. He's a former TIP senior and intermediate manager of TIP Camogie. He's a master specialising in FMS. He's a GA and Camogie tutor. He's a Camogie coach for Mary Immaculate College for the current season 21-22. He was a TIP minor hurling goalkeeping coach in 2020. And by day, Brian is a primary school principal where Camogie and hurling are always on the timetable. So welcome, Brian, and thanks very much. Also tonight, we have two panelists. Our first panelist is Barry Milan, who was our speaker for last week. Barry, again, no stranger to coaching. He was a games development officer in Dublin for many years, but the cry of his home county was too much, so he returned home 2 years ago, where he was the founder of Active Sports Coaching. He's a master in sports coaching. He's currently the hurling coach with Dealey Sports Science, and he's also currently coaching our Finn senior football team. So thanks and welcome, Barry. Our second panelist tonight is Ginny Ferncomb. Denny from Holy Cross. He plays in the goals with the Holy Cross senior hurlers. He's held many coaching roles in his own club, from juvenile right through to adult. He's the current coach for the Tipperary senior camogie team and has been since 2019. He's also involved in coaching and management teams in Mary Immaculate College when they won back-to-back Fitzgibbons in 2016 and 17. So thanks, Denny, and welcome. So just a little bit of housekeeping, lads. Any questions throughout the presentation, when it comes into your head, just type it into the question and answers or the chat function, and Barry and Ginny will be looking after that. And nothing else to say, so we'll just hand over to you, Brian.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. Thank you. So just share here. Okay. All right. Let's say thanks, Grania. Looking forward to tonight. I suppose it's a great time to be involved with Tipperary Camogie, the All Stars recently, or to be involved with girls playing Camogie, having you know, girls like that to look up to, Mary and Caught previously, and Karen, and Anya in goals as well. It's fantastic for them to have that to aspire to, going back into the camogie field in the next couple of weeks. And I suppose tonight is about the challenges, and a kind of firm believer that out of challenges come huge opportunity, and there's definitely opportunity. But I think heading back to the field, we need to be wary as well that, you know, girls, particularly at the top end of where I'm talking about, the 12-year-olds are you know, hitting into a transition in their life, either going into second level, coming out of a transition in that they haven't played sport for a couple of months. And research shows that when girls hit those transitions in life, that's when the dropout comes in sport for them. So the first couple of slides, I'm going to take you through our recent slides being published out by Sport Ireland in their report on keeping girls in sport. It was published in January 2021. Then we're going to take you into games and some of the sessions, looking at fundamental movement skills and some of the research that I own at Masters in relation to how fundamental movement skills can influence our picking up of sport-specific skills. Just without further delay, I'll move on. As I say, the challenges. So girls drop out of sports during transitional phases in their life, just looking at some research. That's from i.e. going into second level, junior cert, TY, or leaving cert. That was my Fahy Al in 2005. I suppose it's one of the things that maybe girls would look at and say, sport, I might miss out on it, I might have other areas. And if the camogie or whatever other sports they're playing isn't something that they feel they're good at, or that they aren't enjoying, well, then it's going to be dropped. Sport Ireland, Keeping in the Game report in 2013 said the same, that it's the transitional stages in life that when girls seem to drop out of sport. Just in the most recent report in January 2021, only 7% of girls aged 14 to 15 are meeting recommended physical activity levels. And at 12, it's just 12%. And that's most recent. So you can imagine where that is in terms of now. And as a result of that, the challenges that presents to you as coaches going back into the field. As I say, I think there's opportunity there as well, but it's just something to be aware of. All reports are about drop-off and no increase in numbers once that drop-off occurs. And what I'm saying there is once they start to drop away from the game, it's very, very, very hard to get them to come back. I suppose a nice anecdote from last year's COVID was the teams noticed an increase in numbers and huge numbers in the field when they got back. And I suppose people maybe realised what they had missed and wanted to get back and missed that social element and the interacting with their peers. And I suppose then a piece of FMS research is done. Siobhan Connor, who's based in DCU, is relevant to our own games. Girls struggle to perform the two-handed strike. So the two-handed strike is holding the bat, holding a ball, bat and trying to strike a stationary ball. So you can imagine the connotations with that in terms of carrying that into our game. So why do girls play sport? So there's 5 reasons given here. This is a support network. It's a sense of place in the world. It gives them an identity, gives them a meaning, a sense of meaning, a sense of place in the world, that, you know, they have their routine, going training, going to matches, that their parents are coming to watch them, to cheer them on. Independence and opportunity. They desire to grow up and find themselves. I suppose there's an independence out of that. I noticed it myself in school since I come back. The girls who play the sport seem to find it a little bit easier to make those transitions, and haven't been, you know, they're that little bit more resilient to the knocks that have occurred during lockdown than the girls who maybe don't play sport, or the kids maybe as well. Socially connected, so they like that connection, going to meet with their friends, you know, at the club field on a Saturday morning or whenever it is. Maybe haven't seen each other since the previous week. It's an important part for them. Those moments of pride. Notice there's nothing saying there about winning or medals or anything like that, but, you know, they're fueling their self-confidence, fueling their self-worth from, you know, being involved in sport, having that routine, getting on with people, even the little bit of discipline as they get older that's required maybe for not going out with the friends on a Saturday night because you have training on the Sunday morning or whatever. Some maybe don't like it, but some thrive in that discipline. Gives them a meaning and a direction. And the last one there, keeping on top of it all, managing teenage pressures. So you find an awful lot of people will say that they give up camogie when it comes to exams and transitions. We'd find that if you can get the girls through those transitions, be it exams, or they look at the camogie or sport involvement as being an outlet to de-stress, it's a huge benefit for them from both a sporting point of view and actually retaining the sport beyond that transition. Okay, so the barriers then to sporting involvement. So a lot of it is down to maybe how they view themselves and capability. Am I good enough? Am I able to perform the skills? And of course, if we're not, if we see ourselves in a negative light, then our motivation will drop. And the opportunity is another big thing. Do they have enough opportunity to play the game? Is it a year-round year? Is it something that they're gone out of their championships early in the year? They don't play matches again for 9-10 months. I suppose with the younger girls, it's brilliant. There's been a great program of blitzes in the last number of years up until present times, where girls have been really active and then get their big blitz day in September. The same with under 12 championships, playing camogie right through. That opportunity to play every day, every week. At that age, they want to have a hurley in their hand, or should have the hurley in their hand as often as possible. Because they say when the challenge comes later on and things get a little bit difficult, it's what they've built, that good foundation they've built, that will hopefully retain them through the challenges. Okay, and then this is the 8 principles for success in terms of retaining them in sport. And I'll draw on this again at the end of the webinar, but no judgment. Okay, so you're not judging. Take the pressure off and give them the opportunity to enjoy and freedom to play. There's nothing wrong with you coming down to the field on a Saturday morning and asking the children, what would you like to do as your warm-up game? If you're used to doing different games, do they want to play one of the tag games? Do they want to play Rob the Nest? Do they want to play remote control, stuck in the mud? Give them that autonomy within the session to show that their opinion matters. Invoke excitement. Okay, a lot of this has to come with the feedback and the communication that you're giving the girls as well. not false feedback in terms of just throwing positives at them for the sake of it, but making it accurate, making sure that what you're giving them is accurate to them, and is specific to them. There's a clear emotional reward in the sport. Opens eyes to what's there, so that sport shows them what's available to them just beyond the sport as a result of being involved in it. Build on those existing habits, so tap into the existing behaviors in other spheres. Give girls a voice and a choice, as I said there in number 1. Champion what's in it for them. So keep pushing what's in it for them, what they can get from it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring an inter-county player to training every Saturday morning to talk to the girls. The girls that they have most instant access to are the older girls within their own club and their adult female players. Make sure they know who they are, introduce them to them. I'm a girl, I was down here with you, I play for my club now. It's only a small minority that will play county, but at club level, if they can see what's there for them with their club level and their friends playing, well, then you stand a brilliant chance of retaining them and building on those friendships and allowing them to build on those links. Expand on the image of what sporty looks like. I suppose that's kind of down to the lifestyle side of things and how, but it can also maybe be down to the organization around the gear and things like that, so that they get to feel, as everybody else does, that they have the right gear, training, or that they, that they have the options to purchase gear if it's there. Just making them feel a little bit more important, and that they can go out with pride and wear the same gear as the older girls within the club. So we're moving on to skill development now. So as I see it, 3 cornerstones of skill development. 1, quality, and these in no particular order. It's just put together. So feedback and encouragement, as I've just said, that is massive. It's huge that you're giving the right kind of feedback. For instance, there's no point in shouting at a girl, get rid of the ball as soon as she gets onto it, and you trying to build her comfort levels in terms of using the ball and traveling with it and doing the right thing with it. If she thinks it's a hot potato every time she gets it, she's going to freeze. So, that feedback is important, and the right kind of encouragement, okay? For everybody, people will, one of the questions that come in the forums, what about girls that switch their hands and so on? Hopefully it'll show you maybe a solution or something to look at to remedy that in a minute. But I suppose some would say don't change their hands, some would say do change their hands. I suppose for every 3 girls or 3 boys that get to play the game at the highest level by switching their hands, there's probably 3,000 that don't. You'll have to judge yourself. Are they so efficient? Are they as efficient as the other players are in doing it the unorthodox way? If they are, maybe they're okay to go at it. But if they're not, and it's really going to take away from their ability to play the game and enjoy it, well, then it's something that has to be addressed. The quality of instruction. So that's not you standing there and being dictatorial to them and instruction that way. It's what instruction are they getting? What is the activities that they're taking part in? The quality of the activities, the quality of the sessions that you put together, and the opportunity for practice. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that when the girls get back to the field, that they have a slitter in their hand as much as possible. Don't go into the scenario where you set them out in lines and that they run out and touch a ball and back again, in and out, and getting to touch the ball every 5 turns. For people that won't have touched the ball, you're already putting a negative restriction on them when they come into the field, telling them that they have to wait their turn. Give them a ball, embrace the chaos, let them run around, let them carry a ball, throw it in the air, jab lift it, hit it to their friends. Just take off the shackles to begin with, because you want them to have the ball in their hands as much as is humanly possible. Just to show where the skills, this is the motor phases of motor development. So the reflexive phase and the rudimentary phase are the early stages where kids are rolling, crawling, sitting up, and then moving on to the fundamental movement phase. Research shows that children have the capacity to master movement skills by the age of 6 and should have them mastered by the age of 10. Research that Barry showed you last week, or research in a minute will show you that that's not the case. But you can see how close they sit together and how one leads directly into the other. The sport-specific phase. So there are skills. If you were to take the sport-specific skills in camogie, there you're striking, you're rising, you're catching, you're hand passing, and so on. Jab lifting, and the fundamental movement skills. The movements they get through those are the movements that they base those sport-specific skills on. They act as good foundations. Okay. So just to give you an idea of where they sit. So the fundamental movement skills. This is taken from the primary school PE handbook Move Well, Move Often. It's available online through the website that I've put down there in the bottom corner. And you can see here the locomotor skills. So locomotor means movement, walking, running, hopping, skipping. Anybody that has read Damien Young's research will see that walking, running are two things that happen regularly in the game of hurling and camogie. So, you know, we might do a lot of running. We mightn't think of walking, hopping and skipping. They're very much to do with landing and balance as well, which you can see there in stability skills. Jumping for height, where you're hoping the girls will be able to jump and catch the ball. Jumping for distance, dodging and sidestepping. So dodging and sidestepping, very, very clear skills when we're in possession, and obviously, you know, trying to launch an attack or trying to out of defense and avoid defenders. Balancing and landing. I suppose, little anecdote there, the first year that we were with Tipperary girls, there was 5 cruciate knee injuries from minor up to senior in that year. No, we didn't have them all, but we kind of said this was too, you know, there was something at play here. So the guys in Satanta who were with us, the sports scientists, had a look at things and said that we needed to work on our landing mechanics. So how girls land when they're on the ball. And also the other thing they said was when girls were taking off and changing direction is when most of the injuries occurred. So we introduced that into our warm-ups, but we also did in our indoor, which the girls were just basically throwing a ball in the air, learning to land softly, bending the knees. And I know that the girls found it hugely beneficial, not only for their catching, but also for the amount of injuries that occurred. And talking to some of them afterwards, they kind of said, God, it would have been brilliant to have that. It was a little too late for us, but it would have been great to have had it at a younger age. And then you see the manipulative skills, the catching, throwing, kicking. So catching, throwing, the throwing mechanics.
Brian, we're losing you a little bit.
And striking in a game is going to be very difficult. So just some things here to consider in teaching. That the teacher instructs the children how to perform the skill. So what they're getting at there is, if we're doing the jump, that you actually show them how they should jump. Because if they're doing it wrong, the game can reinforce the wrong way of doing it. So this comes back to your feedback and communication and your policy of instruction. It's important that we use games, yeah, but they also get the chance to practice it and for you to see them doing it properly. To assist children learn fundamental movement skills, teachers must provide feedback for children to learn. Okay, we've discussed that. Autonomy is critical. Give them the movement, as I said, when they come in, but safety obviously is key, and questioning is a critical component to success in mastery of any skill. Important point here is that FMS takes a long time to master, and available evidence indicates that it can take between 240 minutes and 600 minutes of instruction to teach a child how to perfectly perform the skill. So let's translate that into camogie or hurling. 240 minutes, that's probably four sessions. But if your child is only touching the ball at very, broken up intervals in a session, where you're going to want to be pushing to 600 minutes and beyond, and you don't want to be practicing the same skill for that long. So it's really important that you use the 60 minutes for the kids to have as an authentic a practice to the game as possible. An attempt of an FMS is to be applauded. You don't want to pull out a child and signal them out if they're not doing it right. Is where, use the coaches, use the assistants and the help that you have in the field to help you out in this scenario. If there's somebody struggling, maybe try and draw attention to one of your coaches to help them out and to take them on a one-on-one as part of the overall activity. Involve children in vigorous activity early in the lesson to use up some of the energy. So I spoke about that last week. If they come in and they're full of energy and excitement, don't expect to get them to stand in lines and wait for 6-7 minutes into the session before they get to touch a ball or be active. Get them straight involved into the game, and they will be receptive then to the message you're trying to say or the instruction you're trying to give them. But don't expect them to be listening to that instruction if they have all this energy and you haven't helped them sort of burn it off. So that's just it. I'm going to move on now to the to my research, and this is based on, the title of this was, we were looking at the fundamental movement skills of the under 14 Cork and under 14 Tipperary Camogie panels in 2019. So they were assessed for fundamental movement skills. There was 170 of them all. You can see the N here represents how many of them did each of the tasks. Mastery is that they got full marks for the skill. Near mastery means that they were just struggling at one particular element of the skill. So still really, really good, but they were struggling in one area. As you can see, I highlighted a few of them here. The throw, only 28% of the 167 girls reached mastery, and 23% of them near mastery. Okay, 34% in the roll. So the roll is very similar. If they get down and roll a ball like a game of bowls, you see maybe a lot of girls struggling for line balls. So it's like the lunge, but that roll is also the kind of mimics the mechanics that you would use to jab lift the ball and also to take a sideline. Jump, again, jumping and landing, that involves extending fully. So only 9% of the whole lot of them equates to 16 girls out of 164. And the hop, again, stability and core strength involved here, 15.7%, 50% near mastery. And if you look at the bottom, only 2 girls out of the 167 achieved full marks in the fundamental movement skill. So these are girls that are 12, 13, and 14, should well have them achieved at this stage. That's not to be critical, that's an observation. So what's the relevance of that? Well, we also assess the girls in their in three sport-specific skills: the hand pass, the strike of 20 meters, and the jab lift. Jab lift involved moving to a ball and lifting it as efficiently as possible. So we wanted to see if a girl mastered an FMS, had she a better chance of performing the sport-specific skill better or to a higher standard. And the evidence was fairly irrefutable in that every single one of the skills, if you look here, total sport-specific skills, the hand pass, the strike, and the jab lift. MNM means mastery, near mastery, and NM means non-mastery, as in they didn't achieve anywhere near the target set. And if you look at each one of them, 56, 75, 53, and 48, every single skill where a child had mastery or near mastery, they performed the sport-specific skill better. Okay, if you look here, say for the strike, anyone with non-mastery, the mean score there, the average score was 50. Whereas if they had, it was 53. Now, you might say that was low, but this was the first time there was an intervention then, and they were assessed again 20 weeks later. That evidence has to be brought forward yet. So you can hear the jab lift, those who achieved mastery in those fundamental movement skills, mean score of 48, non-mastery 40. Up here, 56.8, 51, and here, mastery, near mastery, the hand pass, 75 if they achieve fundamental movement skill mastery, 71 if it was non-mastery. So I think the evidence is there to show that there is huge benefit in coaching the fundamental movement skills into our camogie because it will aid their sport-specific skills. The 3 skills that we're going to talk about, and these 3 pictures will come evident right through the session, are tactical. So I'm not talking about playing sweepers now or what they do, any tactics boards like that. What I mean by tactical is what to do when they're on the ball. Do they travel with it? Do they hit it? Are they hand passing it? It's the distributing of the possession. How do they go past players? And things like that. The game skills then, as I say, are the specific skills of the strike, the skills that are indigenous to the game. And the movement skills then, as we had earlier, the dodge, the jump, the run, the walk, all things that we do inside in the game. Again, making sure that the practice environment is authentic to what they're experiencing in the game. And if you look at that, then all of those would involve problem-solving skills and decision-making skills. The players who will necessarily at the end of the year, it mightn't be the girls with the best movement, game, or tactical skills, but if they can marry those with good problem-solving skills and good decision-making skills when they're on the ball, well, then there's a good chance that not only, you know, there mightn't be success at the end of this year, but you're equipping them with the skills to still be in the game. For that junior girl that came down to visit them at the training session, that she gets to play with them and she still has a team in years to come. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that the skills that they either have, there's a problem-solving element to it, you know, they have to, there's a scenario put to them and how are they going to sort it, or decision-making is made as part of what they decide to do. Okay, and, you know, the more decisions they get to make, the more chances are that they'll pull off the right decision for you in a game or in a training session, and you're not standing there wondering why they're getting rid of the ball too quickly or not going past the player when you haven't coached them in training. So these are small hurleys, and I said I'd touch on one of the problems that people talk about, switching hands. We introduced these in our school there recently. They're from Paul Maher in Wexford. His details are there. They're about 16, 17 inches long. I brought them in because I just found the first couple of sessions back, you know, the kids were arriving and we were trying to do things, but by the time they had kind of mastered, you know, there was a good bit gone into the session. And like the hurley was a little bit long and trying to strike the ball and things like that. They were spending so much time trying to perfect that, the session became frustrating for them. So we decided to introduce these, and I have a quick video in a second. I hope it'll load. But the couple of things with this is by using a shorter hurley, they can't play backhanded. They can't switch because it's not long enough. So you don't have to go through any of those horror stories of duct taping the hand, the dominant hand to the top of the hurley or whatever. You know, it's not long enough. If they decide to swing the hurley one-handed, well, they're strengthening up their non-dominant hand in a lot of cases by doing that. The younger children, as I say, find it easier to maneuver. They're able to run and strike the ball at the same time, rather than having to pull it up from their bootlaces, swing it across their body and try and hit it. Eight's hole in the hurley, and also it's really, really good for rising. What I mean by that is the flexion at the ankle, at the knee and at the hip to get down over a ball to rise it, because they have to go so much lower to the ground. The tidier swing, obviously, and it's a shorter lever. So it's a longer lever, it's harder to manipulate. It's a shorter lever, so it's so much easier. The first day I brought these into school, I was kind of greeted with, particularly from first and second, a lot of stares and gazes. But funnily enough, when they went out and played with them and got used to them, they actually wanted to use them the following week and said it's so much easier to use these. Now, it's not something that they're going to depend on, but I think there's no harm in having a set within a club. I'm sure somebody else will make them. They're €6 to €8 is what he was charging me for them. And I think that it's money well spent. Show you in a video in a second, you'll see the good practice that the kids were getting into straight away by using them. Hopefully it loads now. This was us in school last week. So I'm hoping it's loading. If it is, you're getting to see the children getting down. It's easy to rise the ball, bending. Some of them just getting roll rising, soloing with the ball. They were able then to graduate to flicking the ball up in the air and catching. They were able to strike it. They went into striking games afterwards. So they had great fun, and they all, you know, they weren't able to solo maybe with the longer hurley, and now they were able to solo with this, and they were able to have races. And it just meant that the session meant more to them. And I know tonight's session is about 9 to 12-year-olds. Looking at the youngest group there is definitely of benefit to them, particularly if they've been out of the game for quite a while, as has been the case. They then graduated on to playing a game here, and it is kind of clear the decks. So I would arrange split them in two and put a group in each of the, similar to these boxes. On the whistle they'd run, they could bring one ball back into their area, called it Space Invaders, and then they were hitting it over and back. And after I blew the whistle, whichever team had the least amount of balls were the winner. And they had great fun, and it was amazing to see at the end of the children halfway back being able to strike it over. So this is what I'd be saying is a chance not to have to use drills for striking and standing. You're trying to give them a scenario. They're not ready for competitive side of things yet, but they are perfecting their strike. They got to hit loads of balls over and back, and you know, all very enjoyable. A couple of other games then, since we're on the topic, that are kind of, you know, yard games and schoolyard games that are kind of lend themselves to being adapted in some manner. Steal the Bacon. So Steal the Bacon will be where you put all the balls here along a line. Sorry, one ball on a line, and I might have children. They'd have to be equidistant. So you divide them into two teams, and you give everybody on each team a number. So if you call number 4, the two number 4s run in and they tussle for the ball. If they're really young players, just get them to pick the ball up and bring it back. If they're older, you can, you know, they can jab lift and bring it back to their area, and the other player can tackle them. And then you can progress that by calling 2 numbers. Clear the decks, what we've just done. Over the river will be very similar to that. Playing over the river, and you don't want any balls to land inside here and no man's land in the middle. If it does, oh, sorry. That's Over the River. Protect the Queen is a game here. Just a picture of it. So there's 4 goals. There's one player protecting each goals for a team, while their teammates go around to try and score at the other goals. If they hit the target or score a goal, they pick their ball and go to the next one. After a while, then you ask each goalie how many went in. They total them, and you switch the teams around. So 4 goals, 1 goalie. From if the Reds are in, you have 4 red goalies, and the Blues are running around trying to get scores. And as you can see, they can run right around. The other game then here is very similar to the other games that I mentioned there. Shadow running, which is what they're doing here at the bottom, copying the person in front, trying to get away. So that's trying to encourage them to make that move left and right to get away from a defender, just in a game, but introducing it in a fun manner. Saucers and bowls, that's just turning the cones upside down, one team against the other. British Bulldog we'll have a look at, and Foursquare, another game where they switch positions, set up 4 separate squares. On the whistle, they switch positions and try to get into a square. Anybody left out then, they have to try and get in the next time you run around. So that's that. Some of the remote control then is a game that I would use, that de-energizer when they come in. It's very straightforward because it's relevant to the kids' environment. They can play it. It can be walking, running, skipping. Play, they move forward. So when you say play, they move forward. They can run, hop, jump, skip, whichever one you decide. Fast forward, they move quicker. Fast rewind, they rewind. And pause, they freeze. You can introduce maybe a ball into that as well. And I've just done another picture there of a 1-on-1 tag. So you can have one wearing tags and the other not, and they're moving around the cone, trying to get the tag off the other. So if you have a big group, it may not always be, practical to have 10-on-10 in a tag game, because a lot of them will end up standing until somebody comes near them. So maybe break that down into 2 separate games or 3 separate games going on. So there's loads of movement for them all. You'll see these coming in as we move along. The tactical, the game-based, and the movement skills. Always keeping that in mind. And step is down here in the bottom as well, which I'll explain to you shortly. Just some games there. You see them on a website, which I'll bring your attention to later. Just a list of different games that can be used. Capture the flag. Flush the toilet is a tag game where they hold their hand out. Younger kids love playing it. Velcro tag is where they run around and attach to each other when you're caught. Amoeba tag is similar. Off the ground tag is when you're caught. Some people call it sheep and farmers. When they're caught, they have to lie on their back with their arms and their legs in the air until somebody comes along to tag them. Again, a good game in terms of, while the lying on the ground might be specific to the game, the movement and avoiding being caught is very much similar to, evading a defender and so on. So those games are there. So just looking at a game here, this is Capture the Flag, and Capture the Flag rolled into one. So what the kids are doing, there's a ball here and a ball here. You have the yellows and the blues. We played in a form, just did it today, actually playing it as a game of tag rugby. So let's say the blues have the ball. They have 3 passes to get it down here, and the other team have to try and tag them. If every time they're tagged, they have to move the ball onto the next person. If they're tagged 3 times, then the other team get a chance to bring a ball down. You can increase the number of tags, but you're trying to keep it relevant to the game, so they're supporting each other in carrying a ball from one to the other. It's not that they're trying to dispossess them, they're just trying to tag them. Okay. So step you would have seen there. So how do we vary the game? How do we make it more, if more challenging or less challenging? So step stands for space. So we can vary the space in a game. The task, the equipment, we can move it, or the environment, make it bigger, and the amount of people involved in it. So you'll see that at the bottom of all my screens, and you'll also see these 3 little tags up here as well. So moving on. So here we are. Inside here, if you can picture, I have the 4 girls inside. Picture it as being a team. I have loads of slitters inside, loads of opportunities for them to rise a ball, throw it in the air, catch it, run in a different direction, clear the decks. They run out past the orange cones and back in again. Get them, as I say, throw the ball in the air, simple throw in the air and catch. And practice that landing. It can be a one-handed scoop into the hand, practicing all the ways that they would gain possession in a game. they'll become a little bolder. It's very hard to expect them to do that in the white heat of battle. But if they can practice it and hone it there like they would in their back garden, and they can do it without fear, well, then there is a chance that they'll bring it into the game. I was saying there just the things that come in, provide meaningful interactions with the ball, and inside here incorporate your warm-up. So, your hop, skip, simple skipping, alternate legs, jump and land and turn. So they might jump, catch the ball and turn in a different direction. And as I say, clear the decks, clear out of the way. You have fantastic warm-up done inside there. They're interacting with the ball and they're getting all their movements as well. I hope these aren't coming too cluttered. Now, this is a game of Rob the Nest. So don't worry, it's just made big so you can see it. You obviously wouldn't play it from the 65 to the end line. The balls are in the center, divide them in 4 teams. They're running a relay. If they're able to, they jab lift the ball, bring it back out, tag the next team member, and so on until all the balls are gone. And when they've that done, the winners are the ones with the most slitters inside at their end. And then you can alter that game then by part 2. Each team can rob a ball from one of the other nests. Okay, so give them 30 seconds, play the game, run, rob a ball somewhere else. They can't stop you from robbing and bring it back. So it's up to you to be the best robber and take the ball. And then you can introduce that where they can compete for the ball and they have to fight to win the ball to bring it back. Or they can nominate one player from each team then, of all the teams that are moving, but one player in each team, he can steal or she can steal 2 balls and bring them back. Okay? And the final part of that then maybe would be to put a guard on each of the combs while everybody else is robbing. So whoever comes, that person has to defend like hell to make sure that they can't take the slitters. I know it could be arguments and it could be tears, they took them all, but again, you're just hoping that they're having fun, creating a scenario that would happen in a game where they're battling for a ball without even realizing it. Okay, so the skills being practiced there, they're running, they're collecting and traveling, they're rising the ball properly, they're taking steps with the ball. So they're traveling and learning to move with the ball and getting the chance to get their head up. And then as another part of the warm-up here, I've just looked at the some of the rudimentary side of skills, which is the bear walk you can see there. And if you look at the bear walk, which is the one on the top left, and you look at the picture underneath it, the 2 girls jumping for the ball with hand and knee up. It's very similar to the move that he is making there, just in a different plane. He's on the ground there in the air. So there is benefit to it, and you can see how some of the moves, they replicate, and they're great fun. It's hard to do it in anything other than your warm-up, but, integrate them into it and, just to vary the movements that they're used to. The other one there is the crab walk, and then they have bear walks down underneath as well. There's loads and loads of other animal walks that they can include into them. What they're building there, it's not walking for the sake of it. There is an athletic value to them. They're building their core strength. Because they're building their core strength, they're building their balance is building, and their ability to turn and change direction is building as well, because they're building that rotation around the from the hips down. Okay. So we're moving on then to another game. Here I'm back with 2 squares. One is called Pressure on the Rise, and the other is the best of 5. So I'd split the girls into 2 groups. Here you have one that you pair them off. One girl is trying to rise the ball while the other is trying properly to deny her possession. Very similar to the game. Keep the hand off the back, flick the ball away. It's up to the girl who's rising to get away. So that's our evasion and our tag skills. She goes to another ball and another girl is trying to knock the ball away. Okay, they keep a score then. How many successful rises did she make in the minute or whatever length you do it, and then you switch over. At the same time, rather than having a load of collisions inside here, bring the rest of the group over. These rings are just to represent hula hoops. Put the slitters in the middle, set up 2 goals, and it's the best of 5. Leave the balls in the middle. They have to carry the ball through the cone, and if they get the goal, then they get the next ball, and it's up to the team who doesn't have the ball to win it back. So the best of 5, and if the team get 3, then it switch over automatically when you're waiting for the other game. So loads of movement. Part of the, and you're into the session now. How do we vary it? Well, our space, we can make it bigger. The task, changing the best of 5 to the best of 3, and the equipment and personnel, less or more people, or maybe splitting the game again. Just threw in this here because I suppose it fits in. You'll be looking for resources. This book, it's excellent book. I'm sure the lads who've seen it would agree with it as well. It's one of the Dublin GDAs developed it. It's available through the Dublin Coaching and Games website. I'm not sure if it's still there in print, but they usually print huge numbers and get them out. It's full of games. It's full of games, and you know, a lot of the things that you might have seen here, something similar will pop up there, and it's great to have it when you're planning your sessions, because it's really well laid out, telling you the type of games that are there and how to integrate them into the match scenarios. Similar game here is a 3v3, a little bit advanced, but maybe if you're 12 players, a little bit like No Man's Land, one team competing against the other. They have to get it to their partners on the other side. We usually play this diagonally, just for a bit of variation. So they're battling out for the ball, they strike it over, then these are battling for the ball, and then they're striking it back and so on. So loads of space. Again, you can make that space smaller using our step. Vary the time, or maybe instead of having 3-on-3, make it 4-on-2, because it is important that we challenge those really good players as well as the weaker players. You know, it's important that, you know, that we equip that strong player with the skills that when the thing equalizes and balances, that she's able to cope with it. So if that means that you have to turn lopsided games against her, so be it. You know, it's going to happen. Maybe when she goes out, she could be a couple of people around her all the time and she gets frustrated and things like that. Well, it's our job in training session to make sure that she's able to cope with that, or has seen it before. This is a game that we played it in the camps a couple of years ago. So we call it the National League, and we split our groups in. So you've split our teams up into 3v3 or 4v4. They play a game for a set period of time. Normal rules. If you have larger numbers, you can make it a longer pitch. If they're really skillful, make it 45 to 45. Give them all a name. So Tip, Cork, Galway, Kilkenny, Limerick, Waterford, and there's promotion and relegation in it. So the promotion, if they win a game, they go up. If there's relegation, they go down. If you find that there's a team stuck and aren't getting anywhere, well, then move them and give them the opportunity. And then at the end, that everybody is rotated, give each pitch a final and see who wins in the final. So you have loads of small little games. These are only going on 2-3 minutes. Okay. You also rotate the goalie in each one. People always say that it's very hard to get an underage goalie. They play this game knowing that in every game, if they have 3-on-3, there's 3 games, different girls and goals for each game. Goals and points, keep tally. They love the pretend element of saying that they have a Tipperary or a Tipperary jersey or a Cork or whatever on. And they change on the whistle, as they say. Promotion and relegation. So relegation would mean for this team that they might stay. Promotion means that the top team will come the whole way back around again. Just be careful when doing it that you grade your teams, that you don't have one strong team, that you divide your ability levels throughout the teams. So 3 cornerstones, and just back to this before we move on, the feedback and encouragement. It's vital that in those games that we're giving the right feedback, and that if we stop it and want to stop it, we talk to the girls, use our questioning skills. What do you think of that? How do you think that would happen in a game? And just building that into it. So what they're doing, that they're taking it in and realizing that it has relevance in the game, the opportunity for practice and the quality of instruction central to everything we do. If we want to develop the skills, we try and reach the highest standards of those, and then we know that, what we're delivering is of a good quality. So feedback and encouragement. Scenarios here, running into traffic. So the scenario, are the girls always running into traffic or carrying the ball into pressure and turning it over? Are they making it easy for the opposition to defend against them? Are they giving up on the ball when it goes into the corner here? And say if the inactive corner forward, it kind of gives up if the ball is away from them, or kind of stands there, not really getting involved. Maybe they shouldn't be corner forward in the first place. So you look at it varying at this age, wouldn't be tying anybody down that she's the centre back for the club for the next 15 years, because you'd be lucky if that's the pressure she's going to be put under, you'll be lucky to have her in 5. Be careful with the feedback. Don't expect them to be comfortable in the ball if they're being shouted at to get rid of it. Move the ball away from the pressure. So what I'm saying here is maybe come up with a kind of a cue that sort of makes it in their language easier to understand. Move the ball away from the pressure and get them used to the value of turning over the ball. So I've given you 2 scenarios. One, when they're under pressure, what do they do? And the other, when the ball is in on the end line, do we give up on it, or do we say, God, this is a right good chance to still get a score? So we'll start that maybe by looking at a game of Red Rover. So really difficult here for this one player to get through this line. Let the players, why can't she get through? Because there's not space and there's loads of us and only one of her. This is the kind of feedback you're looking at. So you're building their understanding of the scenario. Play it in reverse then with more defenders first, so that they see the worst case scenario. So what do we need to do? Well, she needs more space to be able to get through. So I'd be saying every time that a player gets caught, add in another attacker. So she's obviously been caught, add in another girl now. Add in a ball, so they're carrying a ball. Now you can see straight away you have two and loads of space. So what are they going to do to get through? Will they work together or against each other? What happens if this girl runs to here and the two close her down? Well, she's in traffic. So what's she going to do with the ball? Something that Limerick have been really brilliant at as a hurling team, recycling the ball back out of pressure, making sure that they're not just running into dead ends. And if there's always space, if all these players rush, well, then there's space somewhere. So the appreciation of that. And here we are now, equal number of attackers, equal number of defenders. Okay. Look at the amount of space that's there. How are we going to go in terms of one girl is carrying the ball? If we all run towards her, it's very easy to defend. So we kind of try and make her space and split these defenders, take them away from the pressure of the ball or from where the ball is. And at the same time, we can have a game of breakout. So this will be putting the girl in a really small corner like this, and she has two girls on her and one supporter. How is she going to work her place or her way out of that corner? Very simple scenario. You could have it working in groups of 4, and they'll need their break after these games. There's a lot of running involved. So working the ball out under pressure. Is she going to commit a defender? How is she going to get it out? So you're trying to build on the principles that you've used in these fun games and see the understanding, and you're constantly reinforcing these concepts that you're trying to build, so that when they see them in the game, they go in their own mind and their subconscious, they're able to react to it. So you can turn this game, if they work the ball out, the second girl here is trying to get a score, or it might be just working out to centre flag. Sorry. Nearly there now. So it's the game, as I say, that's just showing the pitch here where I might have slitters in each of the corners and show you now what we're talking about there. So the game going on, rather than starting with the game, always being a puck out. What I'm saying here is if a team gets a score, you shout, and the cornerback has to run and get a ball, and you say either left or right. So it's a full-on chase into the corner. They take a ball. How is that defender going to work the ball out? And how are these attackers going to put the pressure on to win it back and try and get a score? So you're trying to encourage them, rather than using those words, work rate with a young girl, you're trying to encourage them and say, look, there's no dead ball. We don't give up. And if we get it back here, look how close we are to the goals to be able to engineer a score. You're also building on the fact that if she gets the ball, look at the space that we explored through the game, Red Rover. And that's what's going on there. Again, so we're building on our tactics, we're building on our game skills, and obviously the movement. I just show down here then, obviously, trying to keep the players tight inside in the square. You might have that going on at the same time in the game, just to try and get the forwards used to a ball being delivered into space and a defender defending against it. So just want to show you some of the resources that I available myself, just that developed over time. They're on my website, pamireland.com. They're little explanation of games that you can use at the start of a session, or even indoor if you're doing indoor work. You can see remote control there and so on. They're fully free, and they're there. I'll take you to the website in a second so you can see them to explore. So it's the game, the instruction video, or in quick instruction, what the focus is on it, and how to vary it. I also have inside there coaching sessions. There's 11 or 12 of them that were used specifically with the group of girls that I did the Masters project with. They're inside there. If you click on Pam Ireland and go on the coaching link, you'll find them all there on a Google Drive link. And the other one here, it's an older resource we put together a number of years ago, but it's still probably bears some relevance. It's just conditioned and conditioning games. You obviously wouldn't be looking too much at the condition side with this age group, but there's loads of small little mini games there with loads of variety for you to be able to draw upon in your session. And obviously you're only drawing in 2 or 3 of these in every game. And the 2 matches that I showed you there, the National League and the scenarios, are something you tie into your game at the end of a session. I'd say just bringing you back to that was to take anything out of the session or the practical side of things. I would really draw everybody's attention to that. I think it tells us everything we need in terms of making sure that we keep all those girls involved in the game for as long as possible. So that's that. Thanks a million for your time, and if there's any questions, only too glad to answer.
Thanks a million, Brian. I'll invite Denny and Barry back in there now, lads. And if there is any questions, I think someone has their hand up. Denny or Barry, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah. Okay. Don't see any questions coming in yet, but if someone wants to raise their hand and unmute themselves.
I think there's somebody has, Annette O'Donnell has her hand raised there.
Somebody asking there, will the slides be available as well, Gráinne? I think the video will be, won't it?
Yeah.
I can make the slides available as well. There's no problem.
Yeah.
The question here is from Adam, Brian. How would you address the skills gap that you get at the start of a session between the girls who have been practicing all winter and those who have, inverted commas, taken a rest?
Yeah. Definitely. Look, we've been talking about the challenge that's going to be there. I suppose it's key from a club point of view that, you know, you have as much help there as possible in the session, so that if there is that there, that you're able to challenge the girls who have kept working, and you're also able to assist the girls then that maybe haven't. So smaller games, smaller numbers and activities, definitely to begin with. And, you know, that's where you know, if you're an under 8 or under 9 coach, bring in as many as possible to help you so that you can have these games going on, and, you know, maybe have 3 versions of the one game going on at the one time and splitting your groups around. As I say, with the girl who is still practicing right through, you want to challenge her, maybe, as I said, 3 on 2 in that particular scenario. And the girls that haven't been, then you want to you want to keep them together and give them the chance. Also, what I said there in the warm-ups, give them as much interactions with the ball as possible, you know, and their jab lift, and then build into competitive side of things with knocking the ball away, throwing the ball in the air and catching it. The little games like the clear the decks and things like that, giving them a chance to practice their skill. So that would be my thoughts, really, to kind of to split and make sure that the numbers and the group that they're working with is relevant to their own skill level. But have you any other ideas or feedback? Barry or Denny there, would you have any thoughts?
No, Brian, I'd be talking along the very same line as you there. I know in a lot of cases it may be very difficult for management teams to have large numbers in some cases. Okay, I know one of the issues with clubs is getting coaches in, but I think if we can do enough of work behind that and having the right amount of coaches, I think making sure all coaches are involved in the session heavily, working with different areas of the games, as you said there, splitting out the coaches and making sure all the coaches are knowing what we're looking for. And then it might be a case of taking aside a couple of players and after it and maybe discussing how they can improve in certain areas of what you were trying to achieve with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's another question after coming in there. At what age should we introduce lift and strike into games, i.e. blitzes under 8 or under 10? Is it better to let games flow with ground striking only up to a point?
I suppose the blitz is there now in terms of organising that. Probably down to the coaching games. Back to your training scenarios, you try to encourage it as much as possible. As I said, with those small hurleys, and I realise they're not an option for everybody, but you can practice the skills using those, so the lift and the strike. And if they're not comfortable striking the ball out of their hand, they have the opportunity to practice the skill there with something smaller. I'd be using it as much as possible. In those games, as I say, through your activities in your training session. Don't leave it until 10 to start introducing that, because I mean it's an absolutely fundamental skill for them to have as they go along. And if it takes them 2-3 years to perfect it, you're talking about 12 and 13 before they've gotten the strike skills. So it is important, while it mightn't always be there in blitzes. I think it's important that we introduce it as much as possible. And you have the bigger slitters as well. That is an opportunity to use it. And if it's a thing that is bogging down your session, well, maybe don't get carried away with it. But I'm trying to use it as much as possible first, and that they get used to it in the environment of training before they go into games.
Question here from Bobby. How's it going, Bobby? Kind of, maybe we might have answered this already. If you have a number of much better girls in the group, any tips to keep them engaged when you're focusing on bringing up the levels with the others? And
it definitely be interested to hear what the lads have said there, or what the lads would think on this, because it's something that so many different opinions on. But I do think it's important for them. If things are really comfortable for them at this age, it's not always going to be that way. And if they're not equipped with that challenge, when it does get difficult, their resilience levels aren't there, and it becomes such a shock to the system. They're not exactly sure what it is, that's coming at them. They're not able to cope with it. So build it into the training, and, maybe put them on the weaker team and give them that opportunity, or make it a 3-on-1, and just, give them that extra bit of encouragement and say, look, in our games, you're playing so well at the moment, all the other teams are going to be watching out for you. So we're just making sure that when that happens, that you're used to it and that you're comfortable in the scenario.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure you've heard Declan Darcy, if you know him, he's coach with Dublin senior footballers, but he's also a coach of an under 12, I think now, team in Ringsend, Clonagale. And I got him to speak to the coaches in St. Bridget's when I was working up there. And he said that he streams the team, so he puts them into the strongest, and then maybe the weaker, whatever way you want to call it. But he says that he explains to the parents that they're in the C group because they get more touches of the ball in that group, and that's how he explains to the parents that if your boy or your girl is playing with the A team, they're not going to touch the ball, whereas if they're with the kids of their own skill level similar to them, that they would get loads of touches of the ball. I thought that was an interesting way of dividing them up and being able to coach everybody, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 questions after coming in together there, Brian, from Martin. At under 10 and under 12, how often would you coach them per week? And do you set them tasks or skills between sessions?
I answer the second one first. Absolutely. I think there's no better way to take them, to make them kind of put them in control of their own development as well, and outside of the time that you've there with them. And definitely little skills and tasks might be, striking off the wall. It could be hand passes off the wall and catching in and out. How many can they do in 30 seconds? But definitely, because you want them to stay engaged. You don't want them putting up the hurley. If they're training on Saturday morning and they put it up until the following Saturday morning, that's really not going to be of much use to them going forward. They need to have it every single day for those fundamental game skills to be developed. I suppose at 12, you could be looking at maybe twice in the week. I'd say 10s and 12s. I suppose a lot of clubs at this stage too would have them mixed together, so there might be that opportunity. But it might be a case where you have the 10s and 12s training once together and the 12s on their own during the week as well. I suppose it'll vary in numbers. I wouldn't have the 10s any more than once a week anyway. And possibly there is a chance there with the 12s coming up to games, because I know that the under 12 Celtic Challenge type tournament for the championship is intense game wise. You could have 10 or 11 games in a year,
How are we doing, lads, on the questions? Is there more questions?
No, not yet, anyway.
No bother. A good few people are coming in to know will it be available. The 3 last week's session will be available and will tonight, and so will next week on our YouTube channel. And everyone that has registered, will send them an email when they're up on the Tipperary Camogie YouTube channel. Is that okay? They definitely will be available for you.
I mightn't be able to give the PowerPoint itself the slides because of the video makes it a little bit big, but I have no problem putting it into a PDF or whatever and just having that copy of the slides available.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian. So if there's no further questions, lads, I think that's a wrap. So thanks a million to Brian for a wonderful presentation, and thanks a million to Barry and to Ginny for being our panelists this evening. And join us again next week where Ginny will be talking about the teenage player. So thanks a million, lads, and thanks to everybody for joining.
Thanks, Grania.
Thanks, Grania.
Cheers.
Thanks, lads. Well done.